All right. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez. And my guest today, uh, doing her exit interview, is Lorna Feldman, coordinator of Modern Languages Lab of the Department of Education and Language Acquisition, who is retiring from LaGuardia after 45 years of service. Welcome, Lorna.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And I've started doing this where I have the folks that are on the show pick their music, and I now and in that piece that the two of them are playing together. The young woman is doing, the comping or whatever you want to call it, the stride piece, and then he comes in and is doing something on the high notes there, right? His own
Right,
improvisation.
right. They're
What
both boogie woogie experts.
Yeah, right. What why did you decide to play to have that for your intro for the exit interview? Did you think?
It energizes me when I listen to that. It's so much fun, and you can see how much fun they're both having. And it's just at a mall, and I think it's in London. And I think the woman is a professional boogie woogie player, and he's there, and he comes in and plays with her. So it's a lot of fun.
He did go out and they had an audience and they had somebody in there dancing.
Dancing, right? I love that.
Yeah. Again, this is your exit interview. You're retiring and at LaGuardia for 45 years. We've talked a
Yes.
little bit about the format, and I wanted to give you an opportunity in the beginning to just talk a little bit about, your background and some of, your life and studies before you came to LaGuardia. So when we start there.
Okay. Well, I did my undergraduate work at CCNY, and I started out as a French major with a Spanish minor, and loved that. But as we went on, and as I went on in the fields, I realized that I was more interested in the structure of the languages than I was in the literature that I had to study as part of the major. So um, I just looked in the college catalog and I found this interdisciplinary field called linguistics, and I liked what the course listing was, and I said I'm going to switch my major to linguistics, and that so therefore my bachelor's and both my master's degrees are in linguistics, and I really love that because it's the science of language. So I went to the Graduate Center after CCNY in the linguistics program. And while I was there, I wanted to take an independent studies course with Dr. Donald Byrd, who taught at LaGuardia, and he was on the doctoral faculty of linguistics at the Graduate Center, but he never taught it at the Graduate Center, so I had to come to LaGuardia to take the course with him. And that was my first time coming to the college. And after I took that course with him, Gloria Gallengane, who helped Donald Byrd run the ESL program at that time, mentioned that there was an opening at the Writing Center for tutors. So I went and got myself a writing tutoring job there, and from there, that was a lot of fun. I did that for about 6 months, and from there, I was hired by Roberta Matthews to adjunct um, in the English department. She was the chair of the English department then, and I also taught in the ESL program that existed, and that was back in the 70s when we had use of the Sony building across the street from across Thompson Avenue.
Right,
Um,
which is now the
from
library.
Right, it's part of the library. That was a very pleasant building. We also had some not so great places to teach, like Gino's Pizza Factory behind behind the college, between 47th and 48th Avenue, because we would teach. I used to teach ESL on Saturday, and I would that's where I my classroom often was, in the Pizza Factory, and so all we did was smell pizza and garbage basically, because they're making frozen pizza during the week. But we didn't have enough space then. The buildings were not finished. Even the main building was not totally complete back when I started. The main entrance on Thompson Avenue wasn't finished, so we, there's an emergency exit on top, right next to the main entrance. That was our main entrance with the little emergency door then.
And
So yeah,
so you were in the trenches.
yes,
Well,
yes,
I talk about because I mean when I began, not in the '70s, but in the early '90s,
uh huh,
I remember I taught. Actually worked for Sean Galvin, who's a
hmm,
we both know friend of ours, and for Liberty Partnership. So I would come in on Saturdays, but I was teaching in the L building, which was the
yes,
old location the of the photo program where
right.
the old labs were over there. We moved. I can't remember when I think we moved probably in the early 2000s when Scott was on the Scott Javier Lorenas kind of made that happen. So, but what's it like teaching a ESL class on a Saturday? I mean, actually, having said that, I taught a first year seminar last semester on a Saturday, and what were the students like in those days?
Great. I mean, these were the Saturday students were usually adults who worked during the week and could only come to school on Saturday. That was called the SNP program, Saturday Non-Intensive Program. So we just, we met only on Saturday from, I think it was 9 to 12 or something like that. And we had students, just as we do now, we had students from all over the world in the classes. So it was a lot of fun.
And how was it paid for? Because I mean, before Giuliani became the mayor in the '90s, there was always a kind of an ESL programming in the high schools. How was SNP funded in those days? Were people just paying out of pocket, or how was it
I
done?
don't know. I think the students paid something. It wasn't expensive, but I
Right.
don't know how that was funded other than that. Um,
Did you
yeah.
ever finish the degree in linguistics? What happened with
Well,
that?
I got an MA and an MPhil, which means everything was completed except for the PhD, except for the dissertation. Um,
Right.
and because I was already working at LaGuardia and also I was teaching at Queens College at the same time. Um, and so I guess I just I ran out of time there with the
Right.
degree. But
What were you teaching at Queens? Were you also teaching English or ESL or
linguistics. I was teaching linguistics both to mostly undergraduate students, but occasionally I would get a graduate course um, there because they have a master's degree for basically for high school teachers or junior high school teachers who want to have a degree in ESL, TESOL. So I taught in that graduate program. Um, But I always kept my job at LaGuardia. I never stopped working at LaGuardia and Queens College or LaGuardia and other schools that I worked at. Uh,
when did you become full time with the
um,
college?
in the year 2000, with College Now, I was hired by Arlene Kahn, the late great Arlene Kahn, hired me as the coordinator of a new program that had started in College Now. It was called, excuse me, it was called the Pilot Program, and that was just the name of it, and it lasted a few years, um, and that included not just 11th and 12th graders as the normal College Now program does, but also ninth and 10th graders. Uh, and even then, we did a lot of Saturday activities for the students. We took them to plays, Broadway plays, off Broadway plays, and we had workshops at the college on Saturday. So students could pick two workshops out of. We offered four workshops each semester, and the high school students could pick two of the four that they would go to during a Saturday. So that was a nice program.
What kind of workshops were they
Uh,
for?
computer introduction to various aspects of computer use. Remember, this is the early 2000s, so students were still learning this. And we had art, a lot of different types of art workshops and drama and poetry slam type things, where they would write poetry and then present it, and puppet making and puppetry.
Wow.
So a lot of wonderful things on Saturdays for these kids.
What was the hope of the program? Was it basically just encouraging them to be at the college physically and think of LaGuardia as their next step, or what
Yeah,
was the thinking?
well, that's one thing. Just keep them focused on going to college. That should be a focus for them, and not just finishing high school and not going, figuring out what kind of jobs they want. It
Right.
was designed. The whole College Now program is designed to get students already interested in college and doing college work while they're in high school, so that get when they actually go to college, it's a little bit easier. They already have credits accumulated. If they come to LaGuardia, they have a college transcript already if they've taken
Right.
courses, as as one of the College Now reps. And usually that transcript is able to transfer to another school if they wind up going to a different school other than LaGuardia. So it wasn't really to promote LaGuardia specifically, but just promote going to college. Although many students did wind up at LaGuardia.
Yeah, it's funny because I can't remember when it was that I was trying to write a grant to do exactly what you were. I think it was an NEH grant that I was applying for to do exactly this kind of this idea of promoting the humanities, not necessarily
Yes.
LaGuardia, but we were hoping, and
Right.
since we were exposing them to LaGuardia staff and programming, maybe they get the idea, they take a hint and join us. But it was not funded, so it goes.
Oh.
But that was
Uh,
20. That's what 20 years will do to you. When
yes.
we met, it was the early two 2000, and you know, you, you were running College Now, as far as I understood it, right?
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
no, I was always the
no,
coordinator.
yeah, well,
You
that's what it
know,
is because we were
yeah.
working directly, and I know you were there during when Lakshmi, I forgot
Bye.
Lakshmi's last,
Lakshmi Bye, yeah.
yeah, came in, and or Carolyn Henderson, Gina,
Lakshmi Noor,
they
Lakshmi Noor. What am I saying?
like,
Lakshmi
yeah,
Bye.
they were,
Lakshmi
they
Noor.
took turns. They
Yes.
took turns. I think that Carolyn was around, and Lakshmi came in, and then Carolyn came back, and there was a lot of that going on. But we were coordinating. So why did you transition to find yourself in modern languages after that?
Well, Jack Ganser, who was then the chair of the ELA department,
Right.
asked me. Our offices actually were very near each other in the V building, and we would always chat. And he asked me. He said, "Would you like to help out in the lab?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And so he made that switch possible. Uh, I think in 2012. I think it was in the summer of 2012, and that's been where I've been for the last 10 years. It's been wonderful at the Modern Language Lab.
What happens in the lab?
Well, students come to see tutors for tutoring in any of the languages that we offer, and the tutors also run the lab hour of all the elementary and intermediate language classes. So there's 3 hours of class, and the fourth hour is the lab hour, where they review. It's like a recitation hour. Students get to review and practice using the stuff that they've learned in the past week with the
All right.
instructor.
So it's not this where they're. I was thinking that they'd come in and they were like headsets, and you would listen to, le
We
table,
have that.
the
Oh,
table,
yeah, you're right, right.
the plume,
Right, right.
right. So it's
La
nothing
plume
like
de
that
ma
then.
tante, right.
Uh,
Um, No,
I know that.
we do have that. We have a computer lab and we have headsets and sometimes we use them.
Right.
And students can do work at the in the computer lab, and sometimes it depends where their lab is scheduled. If it's scheduled into the computer lab, or if we already have a class there, then another class that has a lab at the same time will be scheduled into a classroom. So we don't have the computers. So
Right. We used to get these emails. I don't know if we still get them, and I just haven't gotten them yet, where they were
yeah,
asking people to volunteer, faculty who would volunteer to speak English with us. I guess I realize
that's
that's
ESL. That's not
ESL. That is
that's
modern
ESL.
languages.
Yeah,
So there aren't
no,
anybody, nobody's volunteering to go in and speak languages with the staff.
with the
I mean,
staff. Well, sometimes people like Tomonori Nagano has a grant, I think,
right,
to have people who are studying particular languages volunteer to actually help out in the study.
right.
But yeah,
I,
so currently we're in modern languages we offer usually about 8 or 9 languages every 12-week session. So
right.
we have tutors in all those languages.
I was trying to remember uh, that I was always I get into this because I worked for an agency at one point where the folks who started there were came from bilingual education. They were bilingual ed, and people don't know this, but there's like three ways. There are three, or the average person probably doesn't know. There's three different ways to study English as a second language, right? Which is ESL, right? English is taught, as the second language, and I guess that makes it English dominant, right? English is the dominant language in the classroom, but you're learning, or no, the other way. Yeah, your English is the dominant language in the classroom, regardless of what your second language is. Then there's bilingual education,
First, yeah,
where you're speaking both languages. There's some sort of equity going on, I guess, in the classroom. And then there's the final one, which is immersion, where you walk in the room and that's the only language you speak, whatever the language of the subject might be. And in your experience, which one of those do you think is the best as far as for students?
that's really hard to say, and it depends on the circumstances. If you're for language learning at a college level,
Right,
for let's say for English speakers who want to learn another language, very often immersion is very helpful. But for junior high school students, or even elementary school students who have to learn English quickly, or recent immigrants who have to learn English quickly,
right,
there are various ways that may work for them. There's not just one way that is the best way
right.
for them.
Did
But
Yeah? Did you keep up your Spanish and your French over the years?
I wish I had more people to speak French with. I think I feel that I it would more of it would come back to me. I mean, I can bring it up when I need it, but Spanish, of course, when it's easy to find people to speak Spanish with. So yes, I can usually hold a conversation in Spanish and a few other languages. But yeah, French, I can't say it's a struggle, but I forget sometimes the vocabulary that, my lexicon
Yeah.
has dropped over the years through lack of use.
I try to explain this to my friends where, I mean, Spanish was my first language as a child at home, and then I
Yeah.
learned English. And but my vocabulary is what my brother-in-law likes to call kitchen Spanish, which is basically the Spanish, the Spanish you need in order to, get by in your home kitchen. Like, the names of all the foods, how to cook them, how to ask for them. But, after that, your vocabulary starts dropping dramatically.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
So,
if you walk around LaGuardia, you hear a lot of the students speaking whatever language, and
right,
often in their conversation, they'll insert English words because they only know those words in English, like
right,
registration and
exactly.
withdrawal from a course and things like that. yeah, they don't know those words even in they don't know those words in their native language because they never had to use them. So you know
Exactly.
you the lexicon grows when the circumstances
Right.
require you to to learn those words.
And some languages obviously don't have certain words in them because they're not necessary, right?
Uh, I don't know. I mean,
Right.
it depends on the language
Well, I mean,
whether,
but
yeah.
like Spanish has fewer words than the English language does, right? Am
Well,
I correct?
yeah, but that's probably because Spanish has a direct Latin root,
Right.
whereas English is a Germanic language, but
Right.
it also has the invasion, the Norman invasion. I was going to
Right.
say the invasion of Normandy. That's the other way around. The Norman invasion and
Right.
that's the 1066 thing. So we have a tremendous amount of French, it's basically Latinate languages that came into English.
Right.
So we have really a balance. We have many synonyms. The Germanic synonym and the Latinate synonym. For the same word. So I think that's why one of the reasons why English has such a huge vocabulary. Lexicon actually.
I
Yeah.
I tell my students in Japanese, and we had Tomonori on here, he would know this. In Japanese, there's like 40 different ways to describe rain, and the reason for that is that in Japan, it rains 40 different ways. Whereas if you grew up in the desert, you'd only have one word, which is water. If it never rained, so there's that.
Do you know any of the 40 ways to describe rain?
We would have to ask Tomonori. But
Yeah.
if you watch some Kurosawa movies, you might pick that up, like the Seventh Samurai. There's the famous rain battle scene at the very end of the movie there. But anyhow, uh, I was going to say, that I remember that at one point there was a group of folks who would get together to speak French. Of
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
and I think Carolyn Henderson-Gina was in there, Patricia Sokolsky, and
Hmm.
Michelle Pizzo. Were you ever part of that group?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
But I remember that group happening. Yes.
To try to keep their, my understanding is that Carolyn's was very good at grammar. So, uh, who's gonna run the lab now that you've moved on? Who's gonna
Well,
take over there?
oh, my colleague Julio Rosario has already started. He's going to be taking over everything now.
Right.
He's already started doing that.
Right. So, uh, some folks make this case because it's interesting that our pathways doesn't mandate that students take a second language as part of it, but when a student transfers to Hunter,
Mhm.
what they call the Hunter core mandates a second language.
Yes.
And I know that a lot of times what happens is there is this issue where students come into the institution, they're already speaking a second language. Some of them would like to take classes in that language, and they're dissuaded because there's some people fear that they're not going to learn English if they're taking, or
And
they're getting too easy of a credit by studying a language they think they seem to already master. Did you find that,
do,
like, what are the kinds of kids that are going into that programming that you would find?
Well, some majors do require that students take a second language, study a language other than English, like international studies, for example,
Right.
or the Japanese option. If you're majoring in, if you're taking liberal arts with a Japanese option, of course you're going to be taking Japanese, and I believe you have to take a semester of another Asian language as well. So therefore, those students are going to be taking Chinese or Korean um, along with it. Um, and Also, there's the Spanish English translation major
Right. Anna
where
Maria
students, Mhm,
Hernandez's
right?
program,
And there's also a deaf studies major, so students take
ASL.
American Sign Language, right? ASL, uh, and there are four levels of ASL. 101 through 104, and typically 4 levels of Japanese, with the possibility of even going higher if there's a great enough demand for it. Um, Sometimes students just want to have a little taste of the language, but also taking a language can satisfy the flexible core requirements. If
Right.
not the core, they satisfy
No,
the flexible core. So
no,
they, in
certainly.
the world culture and global issues usually, or in some cases for higher level, for a fluent student, let's say in Spanish, who jumps to the very top, takes a placement test and jumps to the very top of the Spanish courses, the 200 level. Some of those courses are not in world culture and global issues, but they're in individual and society. So there's definitely satisfy flexible core. And I believe now all liberal arts students in the social science and humanities will have to take uh, a bit of a modern
Right.
language. So that's good. There'll be more students taking modern languages
Yeah.
starting
I, re-
soon. That's
I think
wonderful.
I remember when I toyed with the notion of being a British lit major. And I think I had to take a second language in that, but that was at a 4-year institution. Maybe that
Hmm.
doesn't happen, and you don't necessarily happen at a 2-year institution. I think at the time, even though I had taken Spanish and didn't do particularly well because I was put in a more advanced handle, I was trying to study German at the time, and
Oh,
'cause I had some notion of moving to Germany. I was. Here's another
hmm.
question: the heritage language program, which was also part of it, did they have anything to do with the language lab at all in ESL? I mean,
Oh, sure.
ELA.
Well, heritage language means when you. What do you mean by the heritage language program?
We had a program where I think they were even allowing like faculty and staff to take classes in, like,
Sure.
here I am, I'm Hispanic or Latino,
Yes. Yeah.
and but
Yes.
maybe I don't have a good command of my heritage language. I could have taken Spanish classes to help me
Yes.
develop.
Absolutely. I think you'd be you really are a heritage. You are the
Poster child.
personification of a heritage speaker. You are. You are. Um, because your dominant language is English, although you started out speaking Spanish, but right now you're English dominant. And so, yeah, the 105 course in most of the modern languages that we offer is. Oh, did you disappear?
I'm here. You don't
Oh, you're
see me?
here. Okay. Now I see you. Okay. Uh, the 105 level is the heritage language course, and students, um, and pre-pandemic, the students would take our placement exam to go right into that course if that's what they were good. Students who are heritage speakers like
Right.
you should not be taking 101 or
That's what I was
102 or
told.
103. Right. You take the test, and we want to make sure that you're ready to take 105. And we also want to make sure that you're not even more advanced than
Right.
105, meaning that you're not really a heritage speaker. But yeah, 105 is the heritage language program, and that um, the idea of the heritage language courses is to improve the fluency and the command of grammar and pronunciation, and increase the vocabulary of heritage language speakers so that they can use the language in their careers, and it becomes another tool for them. They can really become fluent um, through that.
Okay.
So that, yeah.
I just want to do this quick station break. It's 1:31.
Sure.
The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, here on LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. And today's guest is Lorna Feldman, who is the coordinator of the Modern Language Lab of the Department of Education and Language Acquisition, who is retiring from LaGuardia after 45 years of service. And this is her exit interview. So we had talked about this when I explained the format. Uh, what you would say are greatest hits. And I mean, I know that your feeling was, well, not necessarily that you had done yourself, but you were a part of, or maybe that you could talk about in all the programming that you've been involved with over the 45 years. What do you think are some of the great successes of that LaGuardia
Oh, I just lost your.
program.
Could you say that again? I
Whether
just lost your voice.
some of the things that you thought were the successes at LaGuardia programming that you were a part of, whether it was College Now or ELA in these last 15, 20 years.
Hmm. Um, well, as I say, for the last 10 years, my focus has been on modern languages. So certainly getting, getting modern languages to fulfill flexible core requirements was a wonderful um, thing because students really want to have the opportunity to take a language. Many students do. I can't say all of them, but uh, having that ability to not only take a language but also fulfill requirements towards graduation is a great thing. But you mentioned Hunter College requires another language. I think Queens College does too. No matter how much language you've taken at LaGuardia, they'll still make you take another semester of something um, uh, at Queens College. Um, and getting certainly starting the Japanese major was a one was a Japanese option, um, and different things that promote the necessity, the usefulness of taking a modern language. We used to have, and occasionally I think we still will have the modern language fair, which would allow students to sample various languages. So that usually we would use the atrium, and we'd have booths, and each booth represented a language, and students could stop by and get a bit of a lesson in any of the languages that we offered. And we'd have a native speaker, usually an instructor or a tutor behind the desk, teaching a little bit of that language. And often we got our tutors and instructors to dress up in something native to one of the countries that speaks that language, and that really attracted students to stop by. Um, so things that make students more aware of the availability of language courses were great. I think great things that happen. What I notice is over the years, it's always surprises me. Students often come by the Modern Language Lab and they say, I'd like to take a language, but how much does it cost? And I say, well, it's part of your tuition. The question always startles me because they think that language is an extra frill. Like, oh, it's nothing I can take like English or math or science. It's something extra. And I say, no, it's something you can take and will help you advance towards graduation. All the credits count towards graduation. So they're always surprised and pleased to learn that. Um, I think sometimes that happens because students may be coming from high schools where they don't offer modern languages anymore. So it, it's nice to have that to introduce to the students.
Right. I mean, I studied Italian in high school, and only
Uh-huh.
because I couldn't take French, because the French classes were all full. You would think I would have studied Spanish, and I mean, that was one of the
Yeah.
great mistakes as well, to never study Spanish, particularly in South Florida. You,
Where you That's where you
from
grew up, South Florida?
between the sixth grade till the end of high school, I never actually, which was why I don't, my grammar is as bad as it is, or my
Well,
spelling.
why don't you come take a
Oh,
class
sorry.
take a class now?
Well, I was interested in the heritage program
Mhm.
because,
Yeah, yeah,
again,
yeah.
like you said, and this is what happened to me many years ago when I went to college. As I walked in, and I had a Cuban surname, and you say, well, you speak Spanish at home, and so they stuck me in the next level, the second level, but without
Mhm.
a history of reading in the language, not knowing the grammar, not having a very strong vocabulary. I was lost, and
Yes.
I just stopped going. Basically, it's one of the, I think it's the only class in college that I ever flunked, which I never made up, and which was some second levels. I'm sure I've got the textbook around here somewhere, and I could read it now, but or chip through it. But I never actually studied it. But I talk about this. A lot of times, and people have said this, that the United States, we're the only country where we believe that you have an education even if you can't speak a second language, and
Yes.
that
Yeah.
language, this is it's gotten political, where people, and the importance is being able to speak English at whatever level, and the second language is, like you said, it's considered a frill, and it gets in the way. And I try to explain to my students the importance of a language in ways that they can understand. And the best example I have is travel, and then you meet somebody who you're interested in, but you don't share a language. And so obviously there's, there is it doesn't go anywhere, basically, especially if you're trying to speak the language and you sound like you're 5 years old, which is not particularly, that's not very attractive. And
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to see you in a Spanish class.
my
So I'm going to
heritage,
send you, well, we have to see if you're ready for heritage. I'm going to send you what is our flow chart that we've been using during the pandemic instead of the placement exam. And that helps you, and students can find it too. It's on our website. If you look at it and you follow through the flow chart, it will help you understand, probably, to zero in on which level of Spanish would be right for you.
right,
Because if you can do these certain things, if you can give directions in Spanish,
right.
and do several of these things, perhaps you belong in this level. If you can do these other things, maybe you belong in this level. So I'm going to send that to you, and students should know that this flow chart is on the Modern Language website. They can access it anytime to see what level of a language that they know some of, or are heritage speakers of. They can see what level they would be appropriate to go into, and you can do the same thing, because you never know. You might benefit from taking 101, the very beginning. You might benefit from going straight to heritage, or you might benefit from something in between.
I want
The
no. I
one
think
on
I think I got to be 101. I already have,
You
and
think so?
I will also tell you that one of my great, like one of the nightmares that I have all the time is taking some sort of course at this stage of my life and not keeping up with the homework. I have that. I have that nightmare
And you
that
come
comes
into the class and the instructor
right.
says,
Yeah,
"Hugo,
yeah,
where is your
exactly.
homework?"
And I'm their colleague, and so they're like mortified
Right, right,
that I can't do it.
right.
Uh, do kids ever come in asking to learn the dead languages? Greek,
Yeah,
Roman?
people like Latin and ancient Greek. Nobody's come in to ask to learn ancient Greek, but people have asked to learn. Why don't we offer Latin? And also the living languages that we don't offer, like German. A lot of people wonder why we don't offer German. And I said, you can take it at another school, but we just don't offer it. We tend to offer languages. We offer a lot of the commonly taught languages, plus some unusual languages, because we have, or less commonly taught languages, because we have many native speakers of those languages. Languages like
Right,
Tibetan and Uzbek. We've offered a course in Uzbek, and Polish and Russian. We certainly have the possibility of offering those when we have enough. In the case of Polish, when we have enough native speakers, fluent speakers, we offer a course in Polish literature for native speakers. And so we have all different kinds of courses. Spanish, we have the full range from the very beginning all the way to the very advanced. But
right,
some other languages we only offer heritage, like the Uzbek, and some languages we only offer the at very advanced, in some cases, like Bengali. We offer Bengali. eh, One semester we'll do the heritage course, and another semester we'll do the super fluent course, the 200 level course, the for native speakers.
Right.
So it varies depending on what our population
Yeah,
is.
we offer Bengali, but we don't offer Hindi,
Correct,
which is
correct. Because
yeah, because those are the
well,
folks.
we have more Bengali
Oh,
speakers attending at LaGuardia, I believe, than
right.
Hindi
Well, it's
speakers.
because
Yeah.
Bengalis are the ones who emigrate, as opposed to Hindi, who kind of stay in this Indian subcontinent. Uh, I was going to you triggered a thought about something, and of course now I've lost. This is what happens. I'm getting as I get older, the things that oh, I was going to say this, and maybe you know this answer. I'll ask. So here's a question, which is before World War One, what was the most commonly taught second language in America?
I know the answer to this. German.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
And no, we had so many German speakers in the United States that we had many German newspapers
right.
and things like that. New York used to have all these German beer gardens
Well,
in
yeah,
yeah,
in
and there's
Yorktown, that were like the
yeah,
Upper East Side in the '80s.
yes, 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 that's right. That's pretty much gone. Just
Right.
a few places are left. But yes, in the 19th century, German was the second most spoken language, just like Spanish is now. It's the second most spoken language in the United States. German was the second most spoken
And
language.
obviously, it got demonized in the First World War, or around this period. I'm actually reading a
Yeah.
biography
Oh,
about
yeah.
LBJ, who, interestingly enough, where he grew up in Texas, West Texas, Southwest Texas, there was a German-speaking community. He even went to a school where they tease him because he didn't speak German well enough. But after World War One, that all changed. In
Yeah.
fact, his father was instrumental in fighting against some of the laws that were trying to be
Oh,
passed
I think
against
against German.
patriotism, things like that.
Oh, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I lose you
Ah.
again there. Well,
Oh,
we're
just
at
for
the
a
last quarter
second.
hour. Yeah, so we're at the last quarter hour, and this is the part where I don't see any questions coming up on the stream, but so I was telling you, like, so this is the part where you get to, you're giving us the sage advice as someone who's been at the college for 45 years, and now you're moving on, but thinking about those of us who stay behind and will
Yeah.
keep doing the work. Like, what are some of the things that we should be thinking about working with our students?
Well, I certainly hope that LaGuardia keeps its academic focus, and um, I know it's important to become vocationally sensitive, for students who may, or for people may have lost jobs during this bad time, to maybe retrain them and get do have a vocation direction. But I also think it's important to um, keep the progress that we've made in making LaGuardia a more academically oriented school, a school that makes it easier for students to transfer to a four-year school when they graduate. So that's my biggest hope. Um, uh, and um, I want students to appreciate, since I'm involved with tutoring, I want students to appreciate that LaGuardia has excellent tutoring programs throughout the college. I mean, there's just about every subject that you can study, there's at least some tutoring. In the case of modern languages, we have a full program of tutoring. And that when they um, graduate from LaGuardia and go to a four-year school, there isn't going to be that kind of tutoring available just about every day. Uh, Whenever you want tutoring, you can have it at LaGuardia. So that's something I hope everybody appreciates, because students come back after going to another
Right.
school in CUNY and they say, "Oh, we miss LaGuardia,"
Well,
but
yeah, yeah.
for many reasons they miss LaGuardia. But one of the reasons is that if they need tutoring or if they just want tutoring, we have it. We
Right.
have it. Mhm.
It's too bad we can't offer it to them once they've left.
Yeah, yeah. Come back and we'll.
But it's interesting because you talk about the academic piece of it, and we all know that
Yes.
under Gail Mello, she kind of turned us into a little junior. That was the thinking. Katopus was very
I didn't hear
involved
you.
in
Turned us
that.
into a what?
A
Turned us
little
into
liberal arts college,
uh
and
and
you
sciences.
were here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you were here when we were the co-op college. When you started
Yes.
here, we were the co-op
Yes.
college
Yes. Yes.
where everybody had to do an internship, where there were a
Yes.
lot of certificates, and but then we changed over the years. So
Yeah. I think we changed as we changed as we had to change, and just like when I first came here, for example, I was just telling somebody recently when I first came here, there were ashtrays on the student's desk and the instructor's desk, and everybody could smoke anywhere they wanted to. So I mean, we've certainly changed for the better there. There's um, that's long gone, thank goodness. So things change as we move forward.
yeah, it's funny. I'm an ex-smoker, so when
Ah,
anybody brings up smoking, when anybody brings, and it's actually 23 years. I know because I stopped smoking the day my daughter was born.
well,
But
congratulations. Good for you.
but but every time somebody brings it up, I just I have that thought of the cigarette, and it sticks with me. And I remember, I was a bartender, and I remember smoking, or a waiter, when working the restaurant business, and you smoked.
Yeah.
We still smoke, and that's gone. But
Yes.
I get it.
But I mean, imagine
We,
smoking in some of our buildings when
yeah,
there's
right.
no air, you can't open a window anywhere, and they're
In front,
puffing
yeah,
away.
in front of the early childhood center. Uh,
Yeah, right, right, right.
so yeah,
They were smoking too. No, 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 just kidding.
no doubt. So other things, other pieces of advice that we should be thinking about we're going through a very big transitional period right now at the college with what's going on in response to the pandemic, in
Yeah,
response to plummeting enrollment numbers, and
yeah.
that we're trying to be responsive to that. So, I mean, because